Hey, it's Hub. This is Video of the Damned on the Morbidly Beautiful Network. It's my day off, because I do actually have a job nowadays. I've exited the freelance world and am back under employ with just enough free time to review some movies for you while these kids get up to shenanigans in the park. So let's see what I watched the last couple weeks. You know Roger Connors. He was a guest on our Morbidly Beautiful Network sister show, The Chamber, and we talked about his appearances in Eddie Lengel's films here on the last episode. I hadn't seen Rebirth in its entirety, so I wanted to report Roger crafts a bleak homage to George Romero's Night of the Living Dead in his directorial debut, with updated modern characters and a bit of a sci-fi twinkle, literally, to those pesky ghouls. There's some other familiar Cleveland indie horror faces here too, which are good to see, even if I've yet to visit Ohio. They just make fun films there. So if you're a fan of the original and want to see a great adaptation, or just like zombie flicks in general, this is the one to watch. I enjoyed Gigi Saul Guerrero's Culture Shock, and she contributed a standout segment to the most recent VHS anthology, so I was looking forward to her Welcome to the Blumhouse Amazon original, Bingo Hell, starring one of my faves, Richard Brake. The screenplay was penned by Guerrero, Shane McKenzie, and They Look Like People writer-director Perry Blackshear. Bingo Hell also stars Adriana Barraza, who was nominated for Best Supporting Actress for 2006 Babel. Rose from Lost is also here. That's L. Scott Caldwell, whose credits and credentials are plenty, and really that's true of the ensemble. Hey, the action takes place around old people at a bingo hall, so you need a seasoned cast. So how does it all come together? Guerrero has a style, a voice we saw in Culture Shock, representing her culture and ideals, some animated characterization, heightened reality, and a creepy undercurrent with some violent moments. This particular story had elements that felt reminiscent of Needful Things, People Under the Stairs, and The Brain of all movies, but not derivative, just possible influences or at least good companions for some double feature nights. So if you don't mind a bit of sentiment with your gore, give this feature a chance to stamp the boxes on your horror bingo card. Joe Castro has been a guest on The Chamber, promoting this very film, Toons 4. This is the 20-year-old franchise that allows Castro not only to showcase the amazing effects and creatures that has him in demand for other folks' films, but also lets him tell his own twisted tales. With a wicked combination of practical effects, green screen, and other visual effects, Castro and his producing, editing, and life partner, Steven Escobar, create a cartoonish nightmarescape. This anthology taps into the mythos of the original, shares some new wild tales, and has one segment that just revels in perverted humor so sick and twisted that it would make Spike and Mike blush. Each feature in the series has its own twists, sometimes with other writers and directors joining in, but this one also has the most interesting cast yet. Mike Ferguson and Sean C. Phillips are just two names and faces indie horror fans have seen more and more of in years that are also in this film. But of course, some genre superstars you best recognize are William Butler, Debbie Rochon, Lizzie Borden, Linnea Quigley, and Briggs Stevens, who pulls multiple duties here as actress, writer, and director. There's even music and cameos by the Radioactive Chickenheads. Toons 4 is too gross, too weird, and too fun to pass up. Final Summer is not just any homage to 80s and 90s camp slashers. It's a personal story through the prism of PTSD, as told by cinematographer John Iceberg, making his feature directing and writing debut after years behind the camera. The two notable stars are Tom Matthews of Return of the Living Dead and Friday the 13th Part 6 Jason Lives, and Bishop Stevens of Revealer and Girl on the Third Floor. But the narrative belongs to the kids at camp, and most of it is one extended cat and mouse game, with tense chase scenes and sadder kill scenes than your usual body count bonanza. The point of view is purposely fuzzy, and I mean figuratively, not the skilled camera work. You won't get all your questions answered, but it's a well-layered survivor story, and the mask is cool. There's two names that you're going to know from That's a Wrap. One is Dave Sheridan of Ghost World, Scary Movie, Bloody Summer Camp, and I won't go too far into his role as not to spoil the movie. The other name is Joe Castro, who we just talked about for Toons 4, who's been a guest on The Chamber, and he does such great kills and effects in this movie. Director Marcel Walls and writer Joe Netter have teamed up before for Blind and Pretty Boy, and That's a Wrap also has a co-writing credit for Robert L. Lucas. Some of the actors like Monique Parent and Sarah French have worked with Walls before, and I really enjoyed how they portrayed their characters. I would seek out their acting again. I was really excited to see this because the trailer definitely looked like a giallo. The premise is a masked killer striking at a rap party for a horror movie called That's a Rap. And there were some compelling themes in this about sex and power and the casting couch and even queer identity in the entertainment industry. I love the set. I love the killer's costume. I love the lighting. It's filmed like a giallo for sure. Some of the characters were very obnoxious and unlikable. In fact, there's a lack of likability for a lot of these folks, and that's okay because I understood as I watched the movie that we were edging more into satire, that this had a lot more humor than I was expecting. And it's okay for movies to have unlikable characters, and it's especially okay for horror movies to have a bunch of unlikable characters and for you to watch what happens to them. So with all of these elements I enjoy, with one of my favorite special effects people, and looking at something that was beautiful, and with a story that I was interested in, what didn't I like? The script, the dialogue itself, the humor that they were going for. It just wasn't for me. It wasn't my style. And there were some actors in the film whose delivery I wasn't a particular fan of. I wasn't asking for it to be an over-the-top giallo parody like The Editor, but honestly, I wasn't going into it thinking it was going to be a parody. But it also wasn't as smart as satire as I think it was aiming to be. And it wasn't dumb enough to be fun, like something like Murder Size, which is a similar kind of satire, but to ridiculous and hysterical ends. But again, you have some strong performances in this. It looks real pretty, and it's got some great Joe Castro effects. I think this needs to be re-released with either Italian dubbing or taking the dialogue tracks and moving it off so that it's not in sync, and then pretend that it's English dub of a Italian script, and then maybe I think I would let it get away with more. When the Trashman Knocks is such an odd duck of a slasher film, but I mean that in the most reverent way. So first of all, let's talk about the writer and director, Christopher Wesley Moore. He previously brought us Triggered and Children of Sin. I haven't seen those movies. I'm really excited to track them down after I saw and enjoyed this. So much like we saw with John Iceberg's Final Summer, a personal take on a Friday the 13th style film, this is Christopher Wesley Moore's take on a Michael Myers style killer. And he even has it centering around a holiday, Thanksgiving, instead of Halloween. We learn about the trash man, who he is, what his motivations are, very quickly in documentary-style footage and interviews. However, this conceit is quickly abandoned, and we're seeing just a straight narrative from there. That was a bit disjointed, but I forgave it. Now, I'm going to try to talk about the actors in the film without giving away much about the characters, because you don't really follow around the characters that you think you're going to. I don't think you're going to guess who lives and who dies either, and I'll just leave it at that. But some strong performances in this include Christopher Wesley Moore himself and Joanne Robinson. I had an epiphany about horror movie casts while watching this. Some go the route of I Know What You Did Last Summer or Scream with youthful and movie star glam. Some range from unique to just plain weird in a tradition as old as John Waters movies or Troma. And these days that could be tattooed pinup models and biker dudes. And maybe as members of the horror fandom going to conventions, that more resembles our peer group. But then something like The Trashman Knocks goes for normal-looking regular folk that you would expect in the small town this takes place in. I mean, you would need to go the Amy Sedaris route with wigs and fake teeth to truly unpretty Joanne Robinson. But the teens look like teens, the restaurant managers look like restaurant managers. It makes it feel more real. And not only is that refreshing, but it does help you immerse yourself into the personal lives of these characters. There are some very beautiful and poignant things about this film that are juxtaposed with a shocking killer who beheads and dismembers his victims. Because I can't get into all of the story beats, because I don't want to give away the surprises and shocks, I will just say that this film does what Halloween Ends was trying to do, minus the whole confusing why is Corey here part of Halloween Ends. I mean, there is a satisfying conclusion when it comes to the killer, his ultimate adversary, and both of their fates. All right, let's talk Oregon Trail. That's O-R-G-A-N Trail. First, the cast. Zoe Degrand Maison, you know her from Riverdale, Orphan Black, maybe even A Christmas Horror Story. We have Love and Death's Olivia Grace Applegate. She is a producer and writer in her own right. We have Detective Hunt himself from Jigsaw, Clay Bennett. You may have also seen him on The Falcon and the Winter Soldier or The Man in the High Castle. And True Blood fans will certainly recognize Sam Trammell in this horror-tinged Western, or is that Western-tinged horror, about a family who finds a survivor of a gang of marauders and what happens when those marauders come back after her. Nothing supernatural here, just a bad situation going to worse. But this is one of the best movies I've seen in a while, and I was so excited to find out it was directed by Michael Patrick Jann. Now, you may remember him from comedy troupe The State. Perhaps you're a fan of 1999's Drop Dead Gorgeous, which he also directed. He's done a bunch of TV since then, including one of my favorite shows, the very underrated Netflix post-apocalyptic high school zombie comedy Daybreak, which I should probably do a whole episode about. I've written about it for One Perfect Episode on drunkmonkeys.us, but you can find the link in the description for that. Anyway, while Jann has done so many episodes of so many shows that you love, this is his second feature directorial effort, and it's a great one. There's even a cameo from a compatriot of his from the state, but I won't spoil it. I'll just say this person is no stranger to the horror genre themselves. I am biased because I like Michael Patrick Jann. I am biased because The Pale Door, another horror Western, is probably my all-time favorite, at least top 5, top 3. But even if you don't usually watch Westerns, maybe you just love suspense, maybe you love cat and mouse games, those thrillers where there is pursuit, capture, escape. How are we going to get out of this one? And this definitely has that. And maybe you like to shout, "Don't go in there," or "Get out of there now." You'll love this movie. And now from the not Oregon Trail, but Oregon Trail to the Obstacle Corpse, not Obstacle Course. Yes, we have another funny title, and this one is actually a funny movie as well. Obstacle Corpse, the writing and directing feature debut from Hope Madden and her production company Mad Wolf, which is with her husband George Wolf, who plays Angry Man in this. One of many, very big cast. This is a Columbus, Ohio production, so I believe most of the actors are from Columbus and Cleveland. Found out about it from Cleveland, Ohio's own Roger Connors, who also is in the film in a cameo role. But if you like, I don't know, Ice-T's Surviving the Game, or Arnold Schwarzenegger's The Running Man, or any one of a number of the Most Dangerous Game kind of films, this is that. This is in the guise of an obstacle course. If you've done marathons or mud runs, especially with a friend or family member as a partner, then you kind of know the deal. But when these pairs show up to run the course, they find out that it is a fatal one. And you know, it's a good excuse to film some gory kill scenes in the woods. You could have probably left it at that and had a decently entertaining film to watch, but it's also packed with silly humor and eccentric characters and themes of family and how we try to impress but maybe end up disappointing parental figures. Heavy stuff for a movie with a punny title, but I really did like it. I was excited to see this, and it did not disappoint. Now, fair warning, not everybody likes musical theater. There is a character who sings his kills. He narrates them lyrically as he goes, but I thought it was actually kind of funny. Some very brash and extreme and cruel characters, not likable, not people you're rooting for, but you do find a handful of heroes on this obstacle course called Obstacle Corpse. That's what I have for you this time around. I'll see about lining up some more interviews for the Chamber and watching some more movies for future editions of Video the Damned. But until then, I remain Hub.